Okay, here we go. I'm so glad to have Joan Sparks from the Flute Pro Shop joining me to talk about FMC Flutes today. So just to get us started, FMC stands for Flute Masters Company. They're based out of Japan. And I play one that I have with me here today and that I've been playing over the course of many years now. And I play professionally in an orchestra. And Joan is the North American distributor. So she has a number of flutes at her shop as well.
And Alex, I think it would be fun for people to know that you are in Manitoba as we're talking.
Yes, I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
And I'm in Wilmington, Delaware in the US. And I looked it up and 101 Delawares would fit into Manitoba.
Oh, wow. Manitoba is a big province. So yeah, that's a really fun fact. Thanks for sharing that. God only knows how many Manitobas would get me to Japan. But
oh, wow.
And I just wanted to get started and talk a little bit about what makes FMC flutes special, what makes them different, and why it's worth giving them a try if you're in the market for a new flute.
Absolutely.
So the history of the FMC flutes, not very many people know about FMC. So just really, really briefly, and I'm sure I'm going to forget something and Joan's going to chime in for me, is that the company was started in 1992. There were a couple of craftspeople who had left another company. They went out on their own. They spent a lot of years working on flutes of all different models, including some really beautiful historic flutes, and combining with their knowledge of the latest technology in flute making. And after a few years of research and seeing all these beautiful flutes that people were playing, they said, you know what? I think we have something to add. Let's make one of our own. And so thus was born the FMC flute. Did I miss anything?
Well, one thing that you and I actually have not talked about, but as you were talking, I recollect that these three flute makers were the ones that made Julius Baker's Yamaha 14-karat gold flute. And they were urging Yamaha to retool to incorporate these changes and these improvements. And Yamaha did not want to do it. So that's when they began working in as the exclusive, actually, I understand, repair shop in all of Asia. The top players sent their instruments there.
But yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I had heard that the master craftsman at FMC, Mr. Nojima, was the guy that used to work on Julius Baker's flutes. So he actually came to the States and worked with Julius Baker. So that's a really fun piece of history there. So one of the other things that I think really makes these flutes unique is how they combine some of the older technologies and the latest technology. So I know that the flute that I play, and I think all of the silver flutes that they make are seamed tube flutes. Is that correct?
Yes. They take a sheet of silver and they, form it around a mandrel to make the tubing, and it's and it allows for a lot of resonance, much more. I think the resonance is outstanding on these instruments. But
yeah, that was one of the things that drew me to it originally, and I think this was a characteristic of the old Louis Lott flutes. It was like the old-fashioned way of making the tube that they went back to because they felt like it had the most resonance. And then
another Louis Lott thing they do is there's this ring on the head joint above the receiver.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and that's apparently a Louis Lott tradition that is felt to make these seamed tubed head joints have the kind of resonance that we want.
Yeah, I've seen that on some of the old Louis Lott head joints.
Yes, exactly.
So some of the other bits of technology that I think make these flutes special are, there's a lot of details about the mechanism, which I know you can get into, but for me as a performer, it's the feel of the mechanism. Not only is it incredibly stable I've been playing this flute for about 10 years now, and I've never had, like a last minute repair issue, just like regular maintenance. But it has an incredibly soft touch that when I let other people try my flute, that's one of the things that they usually remark on. And do you think that has to do with the pinless mechanism and the titanium coated, is it the rods that are titanium coated?
The steels that are inside the rods are titanium coated. And I think that, and I also think the master post is where so much happens on the flute. And what they've done to take the pressure off the master post is they have two smaller posts on the left hand and right hand key stacks that takes the pressure off of here, which I think might be one of the reasons you feel that yours is so resilient in weather changes and whatnot, because this is the area of the flute where the most mechanical motion happens. And of course, in the back here is the F sharp clutch, which is what Louis Lott invented, actually, interestingly enough. And so all of that, I think, adds to the silkiness of the mechanism and also its hardiness.
Great word for it. It's a really silky, it's a silky touch to it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and so I'm just showing my flute because it's a little different than the one that you have in front of you. So I have the inline G, which just my preference. And then I have a different C sharp trill key. So it's kind of hard to see, but this is actually my C sharp trill key right here next to my first trill. So yeah, you can see it on the back of the flute, how it is operated that way. And that's one of the things, you know, they're so inventive. They try so many different things. And that happened to be a real selling point for me because that's a more comfortable mechanism. But, you know, they do all kinds of modifications. So they have the more traditional C sharp. They have this kind of C sharp. I know they have both B and C foots, if that's something that's interest to you. They have offset, they have inline, they have the split E mechanism. Actually, I was on their Facebook page today and they had a whole thing about split E's and why they do them and how they do them. And so, yeah, they're just on the forefront of everything. And the level of craftsmanship, a lot of other flutists and flute mechanics have looked at this instrument since I've had it, and everybody is just really wowed by the level of craftsmanship. They leave no stone unturned. So
absolutely. On this flute, if you look at the curve of the C sharp trill and of the B flat shake, the curve and the contour of these keys match each other, which I think is just absolutely beautiful. And if you turn it, you can see the thumb B flat has a similar curve.
Yeah, exactly.
And look how nice and long and wide this rib is supporting the thumb B flat. I mean, I just, every element is taken care of. And the scale is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because the first time I played this flute, I thought, what's wrong with the C sharp? And then I realized how many years have I been playing the flute and correcting the C sharp, and I don't have to correct the C sharp. It's like right there. The high E the same way, even without the split E.
I don't have the split E, and I don't need it. You know, I don't have a donut or anything in there to compensate for the E. I never, you know, they have them, and those flutes are nice. I've tried them, but I don't feel like I need it. So
no, I find these E's very stable. You can kind of pull them out of the air, and it's really something.
So as we said before, they're not that well known in North America. So I thought it would be really kind of fun to tell the story of how did we both end up, right? We're both in North America. How did we end up with this maker? And so I'll just tell my story really quickly. I was at a flute shop and I was just trying. I didn't know what I wanted. I have an antique flute that I had been playing on, and I just love that sound, but I could not put up with that mechanism anymore. Every flute maker, manufacturer, and repairer on the East Coast had seen me. I was like, I need to figure out how to make this flute stable. I can't keep like playing on a broken flute. And I just was trying and trying and trying, and I wasn't falling in love with the sound of a lot of modern flutes. I just couldn't get the ring that I was getting on this older flute. And so it was a really struggle. I was like, do I have to sort of give up my concept in order to have the stability of mechanism that I'm desiring so that I can just, you know, focus on other things? And when I finally came across the FMC, I frankly was hesitant. I loved the sound of it from the beginning, but I was like, I don't know anything about this maker. I don't know if it's worth the money. I don't know if I could resell it if I ever wanted to. I just had so many questions. And finally, some of my mentors just said, don't worry about that. If it plays well for you, then just play it. And so that's what I've done ever since. And I don't regret it in the slightest. I absolutely love this flute, and I love introducing it to people, which is why we're here today.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know, Joan, do you want to tell your story of how you got to know the FMC guys?
Well, my story is not quite so aesthetically oriented. They contacted me in 2018 and said, we'd like you to carry our flutes. Can we come and see you on our next North American tour? And I said, sure. And we set up a date. And this was sometime, I think, in June. And I never heard from them after we set that date. So I thought, oh, you know, it was just something that wasn't going to happen. So it's Saturday, September 8th. I'm sitting on the porch after my swim practice in my hoodie and my sweats and my flip-flops, and up comes this Uber with these two gentlemen in suits and ties, bowing, you know, and I realized, oh my gosh, it's them. So I tried these suits. My hair was still wet. I was still, you know, but I fell in love instantly. And because the sound was just right there. And so that's when I said, yeah, we got to have these. They're just terrific. And they're different from what we in America are used to, in that these are so well nuanced and speak on so many different levels of expression. It's not just, which I think makes a much more interesting instrument.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in a sense, the more the merrier. We have to be able to express ourselves, and the instrument that you choose to do that on is part of your personal expression, right? It's your
Absolutely.
voice that you're finding. So
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm really glad you didn't have to abandon your concept and your aesthetic.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I kind of fell into that a little bit with my original flute. I bought it from my flute teacher. And so it was, you know, it was just the sound that was in my ear, and I didn't want to give it up, and I didn't have to. So that's the good news.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, so FMC also makes piccolos, some really fantastic ones.
This little piccolo is, first of all, the color is going to be a little different than you're used to. This wood is called pink ivory wood. And for the longest time, it was only available in Zimbabwe. And in Zimbabwe, this wood has, in their mythological culture, has magical powers. And only the leader of the tribe was permitted to have anything in pink ivory wood. Now, this is sustainably farmed in South America, so this wood can be used for musical instruments. It's as dense as granadilla, but it's much lighter in weight than granadilla. So you pick it up and it's sort of like, ooh, this is light, but it's very, very dense, and that's evident in the sound. We have two different head joints. There are two different head joint styles for people. This is the straight, this is the wave. Right now, since I'm not playing piccolo all the time, wave is really good for me. But when I'm in good piccolo shape, the straight is the shape that I.
And you know, as much as they've done work to the flute scale to make it, you know, as close to equal tempered as any flute scale I've ever encountered, you know, they've done the same thing to the piccolo, which is maybe even more surprising when you pick up one of these instruments, because
well, it is absolutely. And also the interesting thing about these piccolos is that the pitch is very variable. You have so much flexibility with it, which can be a little disconcerting at first, but playing piccolo in an orchestra, you have got to be able to match whichever is the principal interval below you. So the malleability of this scale is absolutely terrific. And I think it would make any orchestral player have an easier time matching with the trumpets and then going to the horns and then going to the cellos. You know, it's, as you know, that's what you have to do as a piccolo player.
Yeah, and then having the stability of mechanism. I often say, you know, if you have one tiny little bolt that's loose on a, you know, cargo plane, maybe it's okay. You know, we could land the plane. If you've got one tiny little bolt loose on like a fighter jet, you got a problem, right? Like this
Yeah.
is not gonna work. So,
Exactly.
so I kind of use that when I think about, care and maintenance of my piccolo. Just it's
Mhm.
got to be exactly right. You have way too many other things to think about when you're up there. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Hot seat.
So great. Well, I think that's everything I wanted to cover. Did I forget anything?
I don't think so. I think we've been very thorough, Alex.
And I just want to thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so sad to not be able to bring flutes for everybody to try in person this weekend, but this was kind of the next best thing. So
Well, it is, and it's a wonderful way to do it, even though we can't be in person. And I've loved this. Thanks so much, Alex.
Okay, and so now this is the demonstration time for these great flutes. I'm going to be playing FMC flute number 1015, sterling silver throughout, offset G, open holes, B foot, C sharp trill. I like this Bach excerpt because it's in the middle of the flute, and if the middle of the flute is good, everything else will be too. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the FMC Pink Ivory Wood Piccolo. As I said earlier, the wood is very light but very dense, and I think you'll like the sound.
okay, and last but certainly not least, I'll just do my instrument demonstration. So I'll be playing my FMC, which is number 616. It's got the 970 silver seamed tube. Like I said before, inline G, the C sharp trill key, and no split E mechanism, B foot. So the piece I'm playing is a suggestion of Joan's. She mentioned that Dance of the Blessed Spirits by Gluck might be a nice selection to feature the resonant characteristics of the flute. So I thought it would be nice to play that.